So what are the 5 North Beach communities in Ventura? What do I need to know when looking at beach property, and just how much does it cost to live there? So today we'll take a look at the 5 different beach communities, the type of housing you'll typically see there, average pricing, common neighborhood traits, and allure. Hi, I'm Harold Powell. I'm a local real estate agent serving Ventura and the surrounding communities. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on all things real estate for Ventura, then I suggest hitting these like, subscribe, and bell icon to be notified of future content. Well, the history leading up to the 5 beach communities that we see today begins in the early 1900s. Automobiles were just being introduced, and the need for easier transportation between Ventura and Santa Barbara along the coast was definitely needed. Travel along the coast had a high tide barrier that only allowed coastal travel during low tide. So the answer became an elevated wooden Rincon causeway built on stilts in 1910, and by 1926 the road was modernized with a concrete seawall and the Rickey Causeway was scrapped. It was during the construction of the Rincon Highway it was discovered that there were little plots of land between the highway and the beach, and it was at this time that the idea of having a beach cabin began. So let's answer the question of what are the 5 North End beach communities in Ventura, from the closest to the farthest from Ventura. So, starting with number 1, Solimar Beach, number 2, Faria Beach, number 3, Seacliff Beach, number 4, Mussel Shoals, and number 5, La Conchita. So, if you are looking to buy here, one important distinction in owning beachfront property specifically in these North Beach communities is the need for a seawall. Now, seawalls are a critical component to protecting the property along the Rincon coastline. And up until the 1970s, seawalls were repaired and constructed as needed by the homeowners with cement block, wood, and rock. Then El Nino happened in 1983, which brought extreme high tides and destructive waves that created substantial damage to several oceanfront properties along the Rincon. It was after El Nino that the seawall construction evolved to being built with cement and rebar. Additionally, they were usually built 4 to 6 feet down into bedrock. The important takeaway is, as a buyer, you need to be aware that in most of the communities, the homeowner is responsible for maintaining their portion of the seawall. Now, the exception to this is Seacliff Beach, where the HOA maintains the seawall. So, let's move on to pricing for these different communities. We'll take a look at the average sold price over the past year and a half, as well as the average price per square foot for each of these beach neighborhoods. So beginning with the lowest sale price to the highest sales price. Now, I should mention using the price per square foot can usually give homeowners erroneous estimates of value of a property, which is why, again, a comparative market approach is used by an appraiser and realtors when establishing value. But for this exercise, however, it's useful to see the overall pecking order and price differentials for the different beach communities. All right, so let's start with the most affordable area, which is La Conchita. The average sold price was $580,000, which equated to $768 per square foot. Now, a side note, the Pierpont Beach, it's not part of the North Beach community. The average sale price over this past year was just over $1.9 million, while the sold price per square foot averaged $1,184 a square foot. Number 2 is Mussel Shoals. The average sale price was $3.475 million, while the sold price per square foot was averaged $1,205 per square foot. Number 3 is the Seacliff Beach, which average sale price was just above $3.8 million, which again equates to just under $2,000 per square foot. Number 4 is Faria. The average sold price was $4.255 million, and the average price per square foot was just over $2,000 per square foot. Number 5, Solimar Beach. Average sale price was $4.623 million, which translates to a whopping $2,764 a square foot. Next, let's discuss what you can typically expect to find in each of these communities, starting with Solimar Beach Colony. Now, it's appropriately named Solimar since the name with the Spanish root means sun and sea. And The ocean-facing backyards of these homes have some of the best sun exposures, from beautiful sunrises to gorgeous sunsets, with views of Channel Islands all the way to the point. This beach community saw the development of the homes in the 1940s with modest single-story beach cottages starting at 1,300 square feet to two-story Cape Cod homes up to 2,600 square feet. Now, over time, many of the homes built in the 1970s or earlier were often replaced progressively with larger three-story properties that are closer to 4,000 square feet and in some cases up to 6,000. Architecturally, it's a mix of traditional, modern, Mediterranean. One of the more subtle but significant differences in Solimar is the width of oceanfront footages. The average oceanfront property will typically have 40 to 50 foot of oceanfront, but there are several cases where you'll see 60 to even 100 feet of oceanfront. Naturally, these properties will carry a premium on pricing. Now, the upper end price tag for this area is currently at $9.4 million. There are roughly 60 properties in Solimar Beach community. So there are approximately 6 acres of common area, including 2 tennis courts, guest parking, playground, and basketball court, and sand volleyball. Now, within Solimar, there are gated and non-gated sections. The 2 gated sections are the East Gate and West Gate. They are separated by an estuary, and both east and west sections benefit from the additional guest parking as well as convenient access to the common areas. So these 2 areas offer obviously more privacy as well as a greater setback from Highway 1 than those outside of the gate. The beachfront properties located outside of the gate actually enjoy longer sandy beach time access, since they actually have about 150-foot setback along the coastline compared to the gated properties. So this translates into more beach time before the tide reaches the seawall. Now, some of the reasons you may be interested in this location is the proximity to Ventura. Feels like you're out of town and on vacation, but truthfully, you're only 5 minutes from Ventura and 25 minutes from Santa Barbara. So the beach access from these properties are easily accessible from several different stairways. Number 2 is Faria Beach. It's the next closest beach community to Ventura, just further up the coast. Originally, the homes were built on lease land, but later sold to the homeowners. All the homes in Faria are part of an HOA and have access to tennis courts as well as common beach access points. The architectural styles are a reflection of the many decades of time these properties were built over. There is a complete mix of homes from beach bungalow, Cape Cod, traditional ranch, Mediterranean, modern to even mid-century modern. Faria has also gated and non-gated home sites. Typically, oceanfront footage is between 40 to 50 feet, with a few larger, some at 60 or more ocean foot frontage. Inside the gated portions of Faria, there is an enclave of about 30 beachfront homes and about 18 non-beachfront homes. So to ensure the enjoyment of the ocean views from the second stories of the non-beachfront properties within Faria, the oceanside homes are restricted to a single story. Now, what you'll find inside the gated area are usually modest single-story beachfront homes built in the 1950s to 1980s that are either 2 or 3 bedrooms that average about 1,500 square feet. And the average lot size sits around 5,500. Now, some have undergone interior remodeling. Very few have actually changed their footprint. The non-beachfront are a bit larger since they are usually 2 stories ranging from 1,600 to 2,100 square feet, usually built between the 60s and the 80s. Now, given the restrictions inside the gate, we don't see much new construction inside the gated area. Of course, now outside of the gates, the average square footage home is about 2,100 plus square feet. And that is usually on a 6,000 square foot lot. And I will say there is quite a variation in lot sizes outside of the gate, from as small as 3,000 square feet to 14,000 square feet. And a few homes saw construction in the early 1920s, with most of the homes being built between late 50s through 1980s. Construction continued into the 90s, as well as some recent builds with 4,700 square feet of luxury living and a price tag of $8.9 million. Now, one of the anomalies in Faria is that you'll discover that some of the properties actually have this long, deep, narrow lot, which allows for large street setbacks somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 feet, which provides additional off-street parking that is really hard to come by in these areas. Now, one other point to be aware of in Faria is that not all properties have direct stairway access to the beach off of the property. So in the past, neighbors have often allowed access from their stairway, but because of increased liability concerns, often become the reason that that option gets shut down, which means either walking or driving to the common beach access point to get down to the sand. The Faria properties typically have less beach time due to the tidal action here. Most of the seawalls are typically more substantial here because of the tidal and wave action is more significant. Now, one of the perks of living in Faria is Mondo's Beach, which is a favorite surf spot for the surfing community. Mainly because of the gentle break, Mondo's attracts beginners and intermediates alike. You'll often find surf classes being taught here since, again, it's a great place to learn. And Mondo's is also popular for paddleboarders and kayakers as well. Number 3 is Seacliff Beach. Seacliff is a gated community that has evolved from a funky beach house community to upscale homes over the past few years. Now, this is the smallest of the beach communities with just 49 homes. Like Faria, the properties here were also on leased land. Recently, the homeowners were given an opportunity to purchase their individual lots from the Hobson family, and it was shortly after that that the homeowners that purchased the land began to see the older properties torn down and replaced with newer construction. Now, what you will find here that are the modest 1,000 square foot beach cottages built back in the 1940s with an average size home of around 2,100 square feet. The larger luxury properties are 2 to 3 stories and are 3,000 to 4,300 square feet. The luxury living price tag sits at $4.9 million here. Now, most of the properties within the Seacliff Beach colony are on 40-foot wide lots, and an average lot size is about 5,000. As mentioned earlier, the one difference here is the HOA maintains the seawall and provides for a community path that allows for beach access. So if you are wanting closer access to Carpinteria and Santa Barbara, then this location may be what you're looking for. This location is almost equidistant between Ventura and Carpinteria. There is a convenient Seacliff off and on ramp that provides freeway access to Ventura to the south and Carpinteria, Santa Barbara to the north. Next, number 4, Mussel Shoals. Mussel Shoals is an ungated community with beachfront and numerous non-beachfront homes. The common landmark is the oil pier site, also known as Rincon Island, that was owned by Arco Oil. The island was constructed back in 1958 for the specific purpose of well drilling and oil and gas production. In 2017, the drilling and oil operations ended and Rincon Island was added to the California Coastal Sanctuary. Now, one other gem here in this location is the Cliff House Inn and Shoals Restaurant, which provides oceanside dining as well. Now, most of the oceanfront footage for the homes in this area are around 40 feet. A few of the lots are larger, and in this community there are a number of homes that are one street back from the stand, which actually contributes to the lower average sale price here. Now, as mentioned, there is no gated area and no HOA. Most of the oceanfront homes sit around 40 feet on an average lot of about 4,500. The average home size here is about 2,100. And here we see the newer builds between 2,700 to 3,800 square feet and a luxury price tag of $4.8 million. So, like the other beach communities, the architectural styles are built over decades of time with a mix of beach bungalow, Mediterranean traditional, and modern. One of the more subtle differences here on the western side of Mussel Shoals is it enjoys a dry sand beach most of the year compared to all the other Rincon Beach enclaves, which generally have what we call wet beaches, where the sand does not dry out between high tides. And it does have its access challenges, since it can be only accessed by going south on the 101. Additionally, if you want to head north from here, you'll have no choice but to head south down the 101 and exit Seacliff exit, then circle back on the freeway. So if you are looking for a bit more remote location with a bit more beach time, then this may be the beach community for you. Number 5 is La Conchita. It's located on the north side of the 101 freeway. La Conchita came about actually through a failed beachfront resort development back in 1923 called Punta California. It was renamed La Conchita Del Mar and promoted as a seaside paradise that attempted to attract wealthy investors. In the end, it was settled early on by farmhands, railroad workers, and oil workers, and it became a more multicultural working class neighborhood. Consequently, most of the early construction between the 1930s to the late 1950s reflected a very modest-sized home, often under 1,000 square feet, on a 2,500 square foot lot. Even today, the highest closed sale to date is $870,000 for a 1,400 plus square foot home, which is far below the prices of other Rincon beach communities. Now, the other challenge of living in La Conchita is the history of landslides, which occurred in 1995 and again in 2005. So the most recent landslide, several homes were lost and lives. No doubt this condition has a negative effect on property values here. And like Mussel Shoals, it can only be accessed and exited going one direction on the freeway, which happens to be while traveling north on the 101. While none of the properties sit on the sand, they do have an underpass access under the freeway that leads you to a secluded beach area that is just to the north of Mussel Shoals. So, of the 5 North Beach communities in Ventura, which one is your favorite beach community and why? Feel free to comment in below. Thanks.